Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. Coming up in today's Rosh HaShana special, we'll give you the run-through on the most important news that took place over the last year. Looking to make a new investment, we'll reveal the top 5 Israeli startups to keep your eye on from 2017. And get ready because we have the scoop on what Israeli locals are hoping for in the year to come. On November 8, 2016, Donald Trump shocked the global community when he dramatically won the U.S. presidency over the heavily favored Hillary Clinton. But what did that mean for Israel? Well, at the time of Trump's victory, it was hard to find many international leaders who were pleased with the result. But there's no doubt that Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu was actually one of them. After all, Netanyahu and Trump had already been friends for years, and it's very clear that both see eye to eye on several key policies. Let's not forget that Trump's leadership marks the first time that the Israeli Prime Minister is working with a Republican president over the span of his already 10-year leadership. So what did Donald Trump promise for Israel upon coming into office? Well, to start off, he vowed he would move the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. That hasn't happened yet, but the possibility has still garnered a lot of support from the Jewish state. President Trump also vowed to call off the Iranian deal, calling it the worst negotiated deal ever. That actually hasn't happened yet either, but the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu still seems to think he has a chance at convincing Trump. A recent Pew Report poll has shown that unlike his predecessor, President Obama, President Trump is popular in Israel. In fact, 67% of Israelis backed Trump's suggestion that the United States could withdraw from the Iranian nuclear agreement. While the poll also found that the majority of Israelis supported Trump's highly controversial travel ban on Muslim countries. President Trump even made sure he visited Israel on his first official trip abroad as president, even though he got a little confused along the way about where Israel is actually located on the map. This last Jewish New Year began with a bang for Israel's reform and conservative Jewish community after the Israeli government finally agreed to approve a plan to build an egalitarian prayer space at the beloved Western Wall. But after extreme pressure from ultra-Orthodox parties in his coalition, Prime Minister Netanyahu decided to pull the plug on the plan, and on June 25th of 2017, the government announced they would be freezing the plan, essentially putting it on the back burner. The holy site has always been a major point of contention between conservative reform and ultra-Orthodox Jews. When Israel regained control of the Kotel in 1967, the chief rabbinate of Israel quickly took control of the Jewish historical site and made sure that it would not be treated as a tourist site, but rather as a synagogue. As a result, a fence was put in the middle which separates women and men, and rabbis have instructed police to forbid women from praying loudly or wearing Jewish prayer garments. Several reform groups have been defying the rabbis' instructions and have called on the government to take a stand against the rabbis' full control at the wall. The introduction of egalitarian prayer space was supposed to appease these groups, but now that it's been put on the back burner, Israel's relationship with its Jewish diaspora has been majorly strained. One of the most prominent reform leaders of the American Jewish community, Rabbi Rick Jacobs, slammed the decision, saying, quote, Prime Minister Netanyahu's decision to say no to his previous yes is an unconscionable insult to the majority of world Jewry. We are not going to quietly accept this. It's so insulting. I know there will be a series of responses. Although groups in Israel have tried to get the High Court involved, it looks like the egalitarian space will not be completed anytime soon, and the tension between U.S. Jewish leaders and the current Israeli coalition will continue. Now, speaking of holy sites, let's talk about the Temple Mount, which has been the site of great conflict since this summer. It all began on the morning of July 14th when 3 terrorists from the Israeli Arab city of el-Faham shot and killed 2 Israeli policemen near the Lion's Gate in Jerusalem's Old City. The terrorist attack sent shock waves across Israel for 2 reasons. 1, both terrorists were Israeli citizens, and 2, the attack took place in one of the most holy spots in the world for all 3 monotheistic religions, the beloved Temple Mount, otherwise known as the Al-Aqsa Mosque. So what did the Israeli Prime Minister do in response? What seemed natural after several consultations with security officials, Prime Minister Netanyahu ordered Israeli police to put up metal detectors at the entrance of the Temple Mount to prevent further attacks. Netanyahu clearly did not understand what can of worms he was opening, because for the next 2 weeks, the holy city of Jerusalem was rocked by massive protests and deadly confrontations between Israeli security forces and Arab worshippers. The Jordanian Waqf, who are in charge of Al-Aqsa Mosque, argued that putting up the metal detectors was a violation of the long-standing status quo, while Israeli officials said it was simply for security reasons. The Waqf and Mufti of Jerusalem declared that until the metal detectors were removed from the entrance of the compound, Arab worshippers must pray outside in protest. Well, things seemed to hit a boiling point on Friday of July 21st when 3 Arabs were killed in heavy clashes with Israeli security officials, and a Palestinian terrorist then stabbed 3 Israelis to death in the settlement of Khalamish while they were eating their Friday night dinner. So things were so out of control at one point that there was talk in the Arab streets of a third intifada. Well, finally, after 2 weeks of enormous tension in Jerusalem and tons of international pressure, the Israeli government decided to remove all security measures, including the metal detectors. In response, Muslim worshippers announced that they would finally re-enter Al-Aqsa to pray, and things simmered down quickly. There's no doubt that this was the most serious security crisis of the year for Prime Minister Netanyahu. Iran. Well, for years, the Israeli government has presumed that the Iranian threat was coming from thousands of miles away. But over the last year, the threat seems to be a lot closer. The Israeli government is seriously concerned because Iranian-backed troops are literally across Israel's border in Syria. Iran has been backing Syrian President Bashar al-Assad over the course of Syria's 6-year bloody civil war, and the Islamic Republic has been using the chaos to send over its own troops to the war-torn country. Not good for Israel. Israeli officials have publicly expressed dismay that the Iranian Revolutionary Guards, Hezbollah forces, and other Iranian-supported forces have been set up so close to Israel's border. Israeli officials have recently asked the United States and Russia, which is a close ally of Syria, to make sure that Iranian-backed troops remain 60 to 80 kilometers away from Israel's border. We'll see if Russia listens to the demands, but recent reports have suggested that Russia has only agreed to ensure that the Iranians stay at least 8 kilometers from Israel's border. Israel deems this unacceptable and has repeatedly declared that they will use military force to protect themselves. Several international media reports have even claimed that Israel has launched airstrikes in Syria. As per Israeli policy, the government does not respond to these comments. Israeli intelligence does believe, however, that Iran will continue to beef up its presence along the border, especially if a war breaks out with Hezbollah in the near future. The Lebanese terror organization Hezbollah is an Iranian proxy that receives almost $800 million a year from Iran and has continued to threaten to attack Israel. How close is the Iranian threat to Israel? Well, a recent reporter for the Jerusalem Post who traveled to the northern border city of Metula claims he saw a large poster with the face of the Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khomeini just across the border. The poster said, "We're coming," in both Hebrew and Arabic. Ready for some good news? Well, even though the Israeli Prime Minister has been faced with several security problems at home, he has managed to improve Israel's international image in several new continents. This year, Netanyahu embarked on several historic trips to build new relationships with countries that haven't been so friendly to Israel in the past. This winter, Netanyahu traveled to the Muslim nations of Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan. Earlier this year, Netanyahu made his way all over Africa with a large delegation of businessmen. Uganda, Kenya, Rwanda, and Ethiopia were all on the schedule, with great hopes that the Israeli visit will ensure that these countries actively support Israel at the United Nations in the future. And last but not least, Netanyahu became the first sitting Israeli prime minister to visit Latin America. The Israeli leader started off in Argentina and then made his way through Colombia to Mexico. Israel's hoping to offer these nations technological and security expertise in the hopes that they will be more supportive of Israel on the global stage. Well, there was also some international action taking place here in the Holy Land. Israel also hosted several international leaders in Jerusalem for the first time, including Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So that's what ILTV thinks was the biggest news of 2017, but we hit the streets of Tel Aviv today to see what locals consider to be the real scoop of this past Hebrew year. And to be fair, many of them did agree with us.
That Trump won. It was the biggest news that he won, because nobody thought he would win.
Trump being elected.
אני חושב שטראמפ נבחר.
Donald Trump, I guess. Everything that Twitter by Donald Trump. Yeah.
One thing. Throw us one thing.
I need to go.
No! He doesn't want to talk about the news. All right, my friends, let's talk innovation. Israel already has the most startups per capita in the world, but to ring in the new year, we put together the top 5 companies that have stood out in 2017. Coming in at number 5, say hello to a future full of autonomous cars thanks to the Israeli company Mobileye. Mobileye develops a warning and alert system for drivers that prevents them from getting into accidents. Well, Intel wanted a piece of the magic to develop even better self-driving cars and snatched up Mobileye for a whopping $15.3 billion this year. That's the largest exit in Israel's history. Now at number 4, it looks like the famed delivery stork is going to be going out of business, and it's all because of the Israeli startup Flytrex. Flytrex is literally shaping the future of the delivery service with drones. The company has created a cloud-based drone system that delivers packages to consumers safely via the sky. Hopefully Flytrex will speed up delivery time too. Now up next at number 3, it's better to be safe than sorry, which is where the Israeli company Zebra comes into play. Zebra has created an algorithm to diagnose diseases correctly through medical imaging. Their technology essentially helps doctors with diagnostic accuracy, and the first application of the technology is for detecting breast cancer in mammograms. Zebra has the potential to diagnose tons of other diseases, so this Israeli startup may promise the world a future of earlier diagnoses, saving millions of lives. Coming in at number 2, Super Meat. This Israeli food tech startup wants you to enjoy your meat without the guilt. They're bioengineering cultured chicken meat in a lab from animal cells. In other words, no animals are being killed in the process of producing meat products that taste exactly like meat. The vegan movement is obviously having a field day about this, and super meat could mean we're looking at a future where animal slaughterhouses are a thing of the past. Super Meat actually isn't the only Israeli startup growing meat in labs, so is Future Meat Technologies and Meat the Future. China just invested $300 million in all of these startups. And ringing it in at number 1 is that Israeli company, Watergen. This company has developed a machine that literally extracts fresh water from the air. Yes, you heard that right. Watergen's air generators capture humidity and turn it into water, completely eliminating the need for bottled water. 1.1 billion people lack access to water worldwide, and with the current consumption rate, the planet will be facing major water shortages by 2025. But now that Watergen is in the picture, there's actually hope. Thanks, Israel. Joining us now is former Isha Tita Knesset member Rabbi Dov Lipman, who will give us some more insight into what last year's news means for the future. Thank you so much for coming in.
It's great to be here with you, Natalia.
So let's begin. What would you say your biggest message is to the Jewish people on this new year?
The greatest message and the greatest thing that all of us can think about is we can start anew. Whatever issues we've had, whatever challenges we've had as individuals or as a people, Rosh HaShana, the beginning of a new year, it brings a certain freshness, it brings a certain newness, and an opportunity to say, whatever was, and now it's time for us to move forward. That's, by the way, in our own personal lives on a physical level, on a spiritual level, and also as a nation, and it's an incredible opportunity.
Absolutely. Now, for those of our viewers who are kind of unfamiliar with this holiday, tell us a little bit about Rosh HaShana.
So the Jewish New Year is actually very different than the non-Jewish New Year. It's not you're not going to see all kinds of countdowns and celebrations.
Right.
It's actually a very serious day. It's actually in our tradition a day of judgment, a day of introspection, a day of trying to correct our flaws as we approach God and we actually pray for a good new year, both as a nation, as individuals. So it's a very solemn day, but it shouldn't be overly solemn. It should be a day our sources talk about. It's a day of joy. We sit, we feast together as a family. We hear the shofar blast, which is the horn, which symbolizes God as king and the judgment. But we also should sing, we should dance, and we should rejoice together in festive meals as a family.
Absolutely. And so it means tomorrow, which is Wednesday, nobody's going to be working in this country. I think one of my favorite things about Israel is that when people are celebrating holidays, especially the high holidays, everything really shuts down here. You know, you don't necessarily see that in other countries. So.
It's true. I remember as a child in America walking to synagogue on Rosh HaShana, and it was a regular work day. The buses, the trains, the cars, the honking, the traffic, the sports, everything is just happening. And in Israel, for these 2 days, people really do shut down. Again, there's more religious and there's less religious, but the concept of reverence for the day and recognizing something important is happening here, that's pretty much universal in Israel, and it makes living in Israel so special.
So moving on to some news, what do you think is the most significant accomplishment of the state of Israel in the past year?
I think we have to focus on the accomplishments of the people. If you think about what Israel is contributing to the world, and it happens on a almost daily basis, that you see new technologies, new medical advances. Whenever there's a disaster somewhere in the world, we're the first ones there, or the only ones there, with a field hospital. If you think about the Syrian crisis, and the only country that was really taking in anyone to help them, we had field hospitals on our Syrian border trying to help whatever we can. I think that's where Israel can look at itself over the past year and really pat itself on the back and say, we've accomplished so many special things which are really impacting the lives of people all around the world in the most positive of ways.
And absolutely, another thing though is, we obviously have had many accomplishments here, but there are still things that the state of Israel needs to work on. What do you think is the most pressing issue that the Israeli government needs to address in the coming year?
I would say it's twofold, but they all come from the same source, and that's the unity of the Jewish people. First and foremost, the unity of the Jewish people in Israel, where we have this religious, secular divide. When we go to a synagogue Wednesday night and Thursday and Friday, we don't pray in the singular. We pray in the plural. It's not about me as an individual, but we actually view each other as a nation. And as we approach and as we approach the Day of Atonement later on in Yom Kippur, we actually say we can't pray unless every part of the nation is here. Even those who are quote unquote sinners have to be together, because we're all one people. Just like an orchestra, every single instrument has its role. By itself, it might not sound so on key, but together it makes the beautiful melody with all the harmonies. That's the Jewish people. So in Israel, first and foremost, we have to deal with a lot of issues of religion and state to make sure that every single Jew can feel at home. Every Jew is working together on the progress of the state and on even defending the state as well. Respecting each other, a coexistence, that's in the state, but that impacts the relationship of Israel and diaspora Jewry as well.
Absolutely, and the egalitarian prayer plaza is an example of one of the issues that has been majorly divisive.
Correct. These are all issues which are pulling apart the Jewish people and creating a gap between Israel and diaspora. What greater time than Rosh HaShana for all of us to think about that issue and say, you know what? Maybe we pray differently, maybe we have different ideologies, but when it's all said and done, we just have each other, we're just one family, and that's what the prayers of Rosh Hashanah teach us, that when it's all said and done, we are one family with one God, and I think we have to get back to those basics and begin to love each other and respect each other, and that has to play out in government policy in Israel as well.
Absolutely. Well, Shana Tova, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Shana Tova to you and to all of the viewers of ILTV. Thank you for your support of Israel, for encouraging Israel, for being with us in our good times and our bad. And we should only have a year of peace, health, and happiness for all.
Beautiful. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Shana Tova.
Rosh Hashanah, or the Jewish New Year, is a holiday where everyone takes time to reflect on the past year and bring in the new year surrounded by family and friends. So here are the top 5 traditions for Rosh Hashanah that you should make sure to follow. Number 1, wearing a white shirt is definitely rule number 1 at any Rosh Hashanah dinner. It may not be officially written anywhere, but unofficially, you can expect to get backlash from your mom and grandma for not having one on. Now, all you guys listening out there, get your white button downs ironed and ready to go too, because you know wrinkles don't fly in the new year. Number 2, once you've gotten in the door with your beautifully ironed white shirt, the next step in ensuring a good and sweet new year is to dip apple slices in honey. Not only is this absolutely delicious, it's the tastiest blessing you'll ever eat. Number 3, this next one may sound weird to some of you, but many people eat parts of the head of a fish in order to express the wish to be the head and not the tail in life. Now, this all sounds great and everything until my dad thought it'd be funny to tell me the tradition was to kiss the head and not to eat it. Thanks, Dad. Number 4, back to sweet and delicious food. Pomegranates are also a tradition in Jewish homes during Rosh Hashanah. By eating the pomegranate seeds, you are wishing for your merits to be many like the seeds of the pomegranate. On a related side note, the seeds of the pomegranate are said to number 613, just like the number of mitzvot or good deeds a person can perform. Last but not least, number 5, I could go on with edible traditions for hours, but the last and possibly most important one is what to say to a fellow Jew on the first night of the new year. Gmar Chatima Tova, which in English means, may you be inscribed and sealed for a good year in the book of life. Now that's all for our top 5 holiday special, and may you have a sweet and new year and Gmar Chatima Tova.
While Israelis across the country are preparing their feast for the Jewish New Year, Israel's Technion University took a whole different approach to the typical festivities, proving Israel truly is at the forefront of technology. Check out this awesome video.
22222 22222 22222. This is a nice one. Happy New Year from Technion. Shana Tova, President Lavi.
Shana Tova, Netanyahus. Happy New Year from the Technion.
This was fun. Ever since I was a baby robot, I wanted to be in a film. An apple a day keeps the doctor away.
So now that we've had a chance to look back at some of the biggest news of the last Jewish year, let's hear what Israelis are looking forward to in the future.
Oh my God, it's a good question. I just hope to be healthy, successful, and to be loved.
To do more good things for your friend, for the world.
Well, my resolution would be that everybody should be more nice to each other, that there should be no more wars, that people should stop fighting each other.
I'd like to make more friends. I know that sounds really silly, but as a Ola Chadesha, I feel like I stick to my own friends, and I'd like to make more.
I would ask people just to be more patient, more humble, and with a bit more compassion.
I hope in Israel everything is going to be okay, in the school and everything, the family.
Same. Last year, this year also I am same. I'm very happy.
Peace. I hope there's not going to be no more catastrophe in America with all the hurricanes.
And what is your resolution for the next year? Not quite sure what that means, but clearly it's serious.
Happy New Year. Shana Tova.
Shana Tova! Shana Tova!
Shana Tova. Kulam. Bye.
All right, that's it for our New Year's special. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at ILTV.tv. I'm Natasha Kirchak, and have a wonderful New Year. Shana Tova.